Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want
wanting
a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough. Hey, I'm Kendra.
And I'm Ann, and thank you so much for listening to Hannah's Heart today. Well, it is May, which is crazy.
The year is flying.
Which is Mother's Day. We've celebrated Mother's Day, and now we're starting to focus on foster care because us here at Hannah's Heart, foster care is near and dear to our hearts, and we encourage a lot of anyone to get involved with foster care, but it's also Foster Care Awareness Month, the month of May. And so we like to make these round of shows just different stories and encouragements and some real life stuff of how hard it really can be when you say that yes to the Lord when He's calling you to get involved with foster care. And so we're honored to have a special guest on today, Kendra.
A returning guest who is a licensed mental health therapist for over 30 years and also happens to be my father. And I'll give you a quick, for those of you that haven't, and you've of course been on the show before, go listen to all of his awesome episodes somewhere. He talks more in depth about our immediate family. I am the youngest of 5, have 3 adopted brothers, and my parents met through the Methodist Children's Home, which they both served and worked there with children that came from just a lot of brokenness and backward, just a lot of abuse. And I mean, my mom had knives thrown at her. There were times they had to escape. Just a lot of intense situations.
Wow.
They met while pouring into children. Ended up getting married, ended up being led to do foster care, and then ended up adopting my 3 brothers. And today my dad is here to specifically talk about some of the emotional problems that kids have that then lead to spiritual issues and how families can be prepared to just pray through that. How'd I do?
You did
Is that
great.
about right? Okay.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And let me start by just saying that these issues that foster children and adoptive children have by no means are global. And I don't want you to think at all that every child that has adopted or special needs or regular adoption or foster care has these issues. But in general, adoptive and foster care children have more difficulties in school. Their larger percentage have substance abuse issues, a larger percentage have mental health issues, and also there are studies that show that special needs or just regular adopted children are 3 to 4 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. So these are real issues, and the behavioral issues, the emotional issues that these children come with into the adoptive or foster home often impact and greatly impact their spiritual walk. So let me run through just a couple real quickly. The first is an abandonment or a lack of trust. No matter how the foster parent or the adoptive parent frames the child being in care, they're still going to, many times, feel that they were abandoned. There was something wrong with them. There was something that they were not good enough in some way that their biological parents didn't accept them and didn't love them. Again, it's not the adoptive parent's responsibility to necessarily explain it all, but it certainly helps if they fully understand it all and can help the child understand it, that it wasn't necessarily their fault. And if you think about it, how are we expected a loving child to understand that God loves them when they feel that their own biological parents did not love them or didn't accept them? So closely related to that is a feeling of shame or worthlessness. again, it's connected to the what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I good enough? Why did my biological parents get rid of me when maybe they kept other children or there was something wrong with me? Uh, and again, if they feel that there's something wrong with them, that their parents couldn't keep them, why should they ever feel that a loving God could keep them or want them? So there's that shame and worthlessness. Thirdly, is a sense of grief and loss. They feel that the biological parents didn't love them, so there's that loss, no matter how they frame it. By the biological parent, the adoptive parents necessarily frame that. There's a sense of loss and grief over that. For the adoptive parents, the adoption begins with joy. Hey, we got a child. We got a little child to raise, or we got a couple children that we can pour into their lives and help them raise and become the men or women of God that they want to be. But for the child, that experience begins with a loss.
Yeah.
They may not feel that loss immediately, but in some ways, I think they still know it even from a young age. We know that children, babies in utero can have heartbeats at 6 weeks. And we also know that they can experience feelings that the biological mother was feeling at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have a family member, Kendra, in our own family who had her fourth child in an older age and felt initially, oh my gosh, I have another child. I'm pregnant again. Not necessarily that they didn't want that child, but that it was not expected and they had to struggle with their feelings. Now, very quickly, they overcame that and loved that child just as much as anybody else. But that child, of course, is by now an adult man and still struggles with some feelings of feeling separateness and not necessarily as much of a part of the family. So that's another issue that's really important in this whole issue. The last is a feeling of not feeling really a part of the real family. Especially if there are other children that are the biological children in the family. And it also could be a cultural or heritage issue too, especially if you adopt or foster a child that's of a different race or a different culture than you are and your husband are, as adoptive parents are. So this is a real issue. Maybe, let's say, for instance, a whole family has dark hair and brown eyes, and yet you have blonde hair and blue eyes. You know you stick out. You know you're not the same as everybody else. Maybe I'm not real part of this family.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody else in the family is very musically gifted, play instruments and can sing beautifully, but you're tone deaf. So there's that separateness, and again, not feeling a part of that real family. And again, that goes back to the same feeling of not feeling a part of their heavenly family. They don't feel legitimate in their adoptive family, so they don't feel legitimate in their heavenly family as well. So there's a real need for, I think, adoptive parents and foster parents to frame that issue in a positive way. Not necessarily always of, oh, you were our chosen baby, you were our miracle baby, or we saved you out of a bad situation. Because if they say those type of things, then the child doesn't feel free the same to say, but I feel these bad feelings. I feel these feelings of guilt and unwantedness and anger over being not with my biological parents.
Yeah.
So while it's important for the adoptive parent to explain and express, it's also important that they understand that they need to do it in a way that is not necessarily going to harm or cause more issues for the child.
Or stop the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Continuing.
So for a few things that adoptive parents can do that would help in these situations and step in at any point of this, is number one, they need to pray for these children. Obviously, as Christians, we believe that prayer has a great, great power and can change any situation. We can all think of people that we've known in our lives who have had horrible backgrounds, but then when they became a Christian and through a great deal of prayer, maybe through their parents or someone else, their lives have totally changed.
Yeah.
And so I'm a firm believer in prayer, as I know you ladies are too. And we can change the situation, we can change the world, we can change the child by a great deal of prayer. Prayer over them
Yeah.
and prayer with them are two separate things. Praying with the child on a regular basis, praying over them, maybe when they're sleeping at night, when they're at school every day, when they're on their first play or the sports team or whatever, praying over them for protection, for guidance, for the Lord to work His miracle in their minds and their hearts. Along with that is talking to them and having an open conversation about these feelings that I've just expressed. And again, I want to stop a second and say that not every child has these. This is not, you're not predestined to have these issues. But a lot of times the issues that you have as children because of the rejection from your biological family transfers over to your relationship with your heavenly families.
And what does that look like? Because you have gotten at the heart of the situation, and everything you're saying makes sense as far as what emotionally they're struggling with. But I find it probably unlikely if you have a 7-year-old who was just adopted and is walking through all these things. You're not going to find them in a corner saying, I have abandonment issues, Daddy. They're not going to use that kind of language. They're not going to probably vocalize if they are feeling with these things. What does it actually look like to see that they're struggling with that?
They may have attachment issues, difficulty attaching to the adoptive parents.
So you're not my mom?
You're not my real mom. Or difficulty loving someone
when really
else.
they're desiring to feel a part of the family,
Exactly.
but they're saying...
There's that
Well, see, and
conflict.
what about, I think it can be the other way too, of like attachment issues of like being so attached to the adoptive family.
So
I've had
clingy.
friends that, and my little boy, he has to know what the plan is for the day. And he doesn't even know life without us because we picked him up from the hospital at 2 days old. But we can still see that my little girl, she's good to go. I love you. Give kisses, give hugs. We're good. See you in a little bit. My little boy is, who's picking me up? When are you picking me up? Do you have lunch? Okay, where's Jane going to be? Where's Nora going to be? Like, we have all these questions.
So which tell me that there's a security issue there, that he needs to feel very, very secure.
Yeah.
Probably because early on in utero, he may not have felt secure.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to share his full story before he gets a chance to know his full story because we've only shared with him as he asks questions. Really just trying to pray through it along the way to know what the Lord wants us to share right now, because we've also had friends to say, we shared too much too soon. We we thought that we wanted them to know everything, and you're telling a 5-year-old everything, and it's like this was a lot for that 5-year-old to hear, and now where's my real mama, And so
in general, I think a good rule is to wait for the child to lead those things.
and that's what we've been told.
Have the child lead the discussions if they're ready. Now, it's also important to ask the child if they have any issues. So there's not a set, firm answer to that.
Right.
But in general, let the child lead when they're ready to ask questions. But then it's okay as the adoptive parent to also say, hey, if you ever feel this way, come to mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
We've got, some answers for you. And they'll put that in the back of their mind. And when they are ready or when it's a need, they will then say, hey, I want to come to you. Kendra said earlier that we have 3 adopted children. One of our adopted children feels none of this at all. My birth mother didn't love me. She gave me up. She allowed there to be a lot of abuse. I have no desire to see her, to know her. I don't feel anything about her at all. Your mom and dad And for him, it's a set issue, and he's never dealt with any of those at all because he really doesn't need to deal with those. But it's different for every child.
Yeah.
So along with talking to them is finding out as much information as you can for them to help them understand their past and make sense of their presence and their relationship with God. Maybe going back to the social worker that helped with the place with the adoption or the foster care. Maybe going back to see other foster parents that can fill in a lot of questions. Besides the praying and the talking, it's also necessary, I think, to normalize their feelings and let them know that what they're experiencing is not weird. It's not abnormal.
Yeah.
That a lot of people would feel the same way, and a lot of other kids feel the same way. And tell them that, hey, if I were in your position, I'd probably feel that way too.
Yeah.
And
good.
it's okay to do that. There's a wonderful verse in Psalms 27, verse 10. It says, "For my father and mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in."
Oh, wow.
So explaining the whole concept of what being chosen as far as a Christian walk is really important. Explaining how God chose us out of a sinful situation and poured his love into us. And therefore we're special and we don't have to look at what the world says. It's difficult when we're living in a fallen world to expect our children to not feel the same things that the world tells them to feel. But we're Christians and we have a relationship with Christ that the world does not have.
Yeah.
So therefore, we don't have to depend on what the world says in relation to our Heavenly Father.
So even something as simple as making sure you talk about your own testimony to them and talking about how, because we are all
Good point.
adopted into the kingdom
Exactly.
of God, and making that connection for them, I think would be helpful. I had a question. So you and Mom had a lot of experience with kids that have had a lot of emotional issues. And so you kind of went into adoption knowing some of the behavioral issues to expect. They didn't necessarily blindside you, but that's not the case for everybody. Why do you think it's important to understand these deep issues before you jump into fostering?
Wow, that's a good question. But I would say in general, you need to expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
You don't need to think that this is going to be a rosy tinted relationship and everything's going to be perfect. I had actually a grandfather asked me a couple years ago. His son had adopted 3 boys, and he told me, he said, "Well, they'll be okay. Right? I mean, if they just love them enough, it's going to be okay." And how do you explain to them that sometimes just loving them enough is not going to necessarily be enough, that they have more emotional and issues and spiritual issues that are deep-seated that just loving them enough is not necessarily going to answer, that they may need some professional help, that they may need somebody else to talk to outside the family
Yeah.
to explain and to normalize these emotions and all.
And I think I'm thinking of a friend right now who has a little boy who's been adopted through foster care, and they've had to get a facility. He's had to go to a facility because of some suicidal thoughts and things like that. And of course, that friend and her husband are feeling a lot of guilt with that. Guilt because he's
Like they
feeling those
feel.
emotions. Yeah, but then also guilt of putting him outside of the home. But then it's like, we're trying to save his life. We've done this, and this. And so, yeah, like right now at my stage of adoption, we haven't necessarily experienced any big emotions like that.
Well, let me share something just to help that person out a little. My wife is a teacher. She has a degree in teaching and has worked with kids in runaway shelters and homes for children with emotional disturbances. I'm a professional therapist, a mental health therapist. I also dealt with many, many adoptions. And one of our adopted sons, when that child became 14, his behavioral problems became so severe despite all of our wonderful training and our praying over the child and doing all the right things, having them in church, having them in just so many activities, that child had to be placed out the home for a while. That was extremely hard decision for us. But for the safety of other children in the home and for the child's own safety,
Yeah.
it became necessary. We did not terminate rights on that child. We did not give up on that child.
Right.
In fact, we have an extremely close relationship with that child today. We see them regularly, he and his wife and their children, and they're a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something that the social worker at the time told us that made a lot of sense and helped us get through that hard situation. He said, "You were trying to do the job of a treatment center, but you didn't have enough staff."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that made a lot of sense to us.
Yeah.
We couldn't meet every emotional needs as adoptive parents, even though we had all this great training and we're doing all the spiritually correct things.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, let you look down the road at where that child is. That child is in church now. I mean, a grown man is
Yeah.
in his 40s now. He is happily married for a number of years. He has a full-time job. He is in church. His children and his wife are in church. He
Well, praise
prays
the Lord for
regularly.
that.
He prays regularly. So even though that all happened and we never gave up on him, and spiritually he is doing okay right now.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I can't. Well, I'll have to share this episode with my friend because they're older. She's old. It could be my mom maybe, but yeah, the little boy right now, he's definitely struggling. But yeah, we're just praying and praying for him, and so I know that could be encouraging. What would you say to someone who's hearing these things and they're considering getting into foster care, but they're like not for sure, and now they're hearing some kind of
Scary thing.
some kind of things like, well, never mind, that might not be for me, you know.
Well, they have to understand that their lives will be totally turned upside down.
Man, that's a good way to say that.
It's not going to be the same. You are not going to have the sit back, just you and your wife at the end of the day.
That's true of any children. I don't have any adopted
Well,
children.
that's true.
That's true of any kids, but it's different with foster care when you got social workers and visits.
Exactly. You
and-
have people coming in your home all the time. You have appointments that you have to keep, whether it's medical appointments or
yeah, there's
treatment
lots of those.
appointments, therapy appointments.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do, but the rewards are out there if
Yeah.
you're willing to take the risk and the part with it.
Yeah, that's so good. We're not necessarily involved. I think we're involved in different ways with foster care right now. Our home isn't an open home right now. But obviously it changed my life. My little boy came from, foster care. Now we're actually legally 2 kiddos, godparents who were in our home at one time. And so you speaking about some of the situations that reminded me of the first little boy who was in our home. He was 6 years old at the time and had lived a harder life than what I could think I ever could imagine living. And you could see it in every aspect of his demeanor. And he wanted someone to prove that they loved him. And you saying that love wasn't enough, we couldn't provide that. It was our first time fostering. I think we were like 24 at the time. We just never had children before. And
And let me go back and even say that it's not necessarily that love is not enough, but the kind of love that child wants is necessarily not enough. The acceptance that even when I set a fire in your bedroom, you're still going to love me.
correct. And that's where this little boy was.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to end this episode on a positive note because that little boy, he did end up getting the help, but he had to go outside of the home as well to get the help that he needed. But I would encourage anyone to get involved with fostering, no matter what that might look like, to make sure that foster parents can have a date night out or to get involved and get in the nitty gritty of being.
We're told to do it.
We are told to do it.
Pure religion is this, to take care of the orphan and the widow in their
That's right.
distress. And, a lot of it, when you are sowing seeds, I think I keep coming back to the parable of the sower. when you are sowing seeds, sometimes you do not see the fruit for a really long time.
That's true.
And when you are in the thick of fostering, I can only imagine you are reaping things that other people sowed into their life. And there's a lot of weeding that has to happen, and that's probably very frustrating. But even in a situation where maybe they do have to go into a group home, you never know the seeds that you planted in their life. Years, it may be 20 years down the road. It may be all of us. Sanctification is a process, and what a joy to get to be a part of sowing and putting God's word into people's lives.
That's so good. Mr. Dave, thanks so much for coming on. I learned a lot from you, so I appreciate you being here. I hope this episode was encouraging to anyone who listened, and just to either get you involved with foster care or to share with someone who's already in the nitty-gritty of it, because it really is so worth it. You have 3 kiddos because of that, and then
grandkids.
and grandkids,
Extra.
and then 2 kiddos that learned
13
a lot
grandchildren.
13. That's crazy. But 2 other kiddos that watched you love other people's children like Jesus. And so what bigger blessing is than that? Thank you guys for listening to Hannah's Heart. We'll see you back next week.